Alright, YouTube and Elder Scrolls community. So, in this video, I wanted to rant about fucking Elder Scrolls Online. The game's not bad. It's not even really about the game in general. It's about the dungeons and kind of the player base of the game. Okay, I can understand. Elder Scrolls Online is a massive multiplayer online game. So, there's a lot of competition. There's a meta to it. Any kind of game that is multiplayer tends to have a meta. So, there's certain things that are good, certain things that are bad, certain things that are preferred, whatever the case. And when I first started playing this game, I really fell in love with the dungeon aspect because you team up with 3 other dudes, and you fight a bunch of smaller bosses and a pretty big boss at the end. And I thought that was really cool. I've always been into PvE stuff. I don't really care for the player versus player shit because that just takes too much time to learn. There's such a learning curve to it, and it's so much more complicated. And I just like teaming up and fighting just really hard enemies. It's something that's really fun for me. And it used to be really hard to get into dungeons, so I've always, whenever you search a dungeon, you can search as a tank, healer, DPS, a combination of 2 or all 3, and you'll get put into a certain role depending. And if you're a tank or a healer, it's easier to find dungeons because every dungeon requires a tank, healer, and 2 DPS. And I tend to do DPS. That's just my thing. But again, I used to search dungeons based on, I used to do all 3 just so I could get into a dungeon. And then I started realizing, especially once I got higher level and started doing the veteran dungeons, that the healer and tank role actually matter. I didn't know any better. I was just playing the game, just trying to learn how to do dungeons. And here recently, in the harder dungeons, I used to have people like give me shit for being in a healer role but just doing DPS. And here recently, in the harder dungeons, I have people that are giving me shit for not being a good DPS. And to me, that's fucking ridiculous, because my actual role is damage. All I gotta do is damage. It doesn't matter. Maybe I'm not doing the most amount of damage. There's probably a better way to go about doing damage to get the maximum amount of damage per second. But I don't take the time to learn that because I have other things to do. I have other games to play, whatever the case. And so, yeah, I have dudes that give me shit for that. And I'm like, well, first off, for one of the dudes that was giving me shit was in a tank role, but he himself said in the game chat that he had searched the tank role just to get into a dungeon he's a DPS, but he just searched tank just to get into a dungeon. And so he's giving me shit for being a bad DPS, yet on the exact same hand, he himself is a bad player because he's not doing the tank role that he searched for. So it's kind of retarded. Anyways, yeah, he's giving me shit because I was a certain type of character. I'm a stamina Nightblade. Maybe you know what that is, maybe you don't. But this armor that I'm wearing that you see on screen it has the ability to where I do like this magic damage to guys around me. He's giving me shit for that because I'm a stamina character, yet I'm doing magic damage. As if it fucking matters. My entire role is to do damage. Who cares how I go about doing it? I'm just doing damage. And I do the lava thing around my character that you see on screen every now and then. That's part of the armor. Every time I do damage, there's a 10% chance of me creating a lava pool around me. That's residual damage. I do the bow stuff. What I do is I do a bunch of damage over time. So I stack on a bunch of things that are damaging the enemy over time, and then while those are going on, I'm doing my light and heavy attacks. That's my role. That's how I play the game. That's what I prefer to do. And people give me shit on it. And then I used to, before I started this third character, I was DPS, of course, and I would do damage, and then my secondary weapon was a restoration staff. And I've gotten a lot of shit for that as well. And the reason being is, unless I get into a veteran dungeon with a really good healer, our healers tend to really fucking suck. So what I choose to do is, I was running a secondary weapon, a restoration staff, so that I could also secondary as a healer. I would do the bow. My bow is my main weapon. But I would do a secondary restoration staff to help heal because our healer was never good enough. And sometimes, dude, I would be a better healer than our dude whose entire role is to be a healer. I would be doing my damage. I would be doing the damage with the bow, and I'd switch over to my restoration staff, healing everybody in the group and putting up damage buffs and stuff. I don't even know what the fuck our healer's actually doing. So, but I used to get shit for that. I'm just like, what's it matter? For one, when the restoration staff's out, yes, I'm healing, but I can still do damage. I don't just have healing abilities on my ability bar, and I still have my light and heavy attacks, which I do a lot because heavy attacks restore your stamina or magicka, depending on what you're using. So anyways, I can still do damage with the restoration staff out. What's it matter? My entire role is to do damage. If you're a tank, you're supposed to taunt the enemies, draw their attacks to you so that everybody else can damage them, and then the healer heals everybody, mainly the tank, but also the DPS as well, because you want everybody to be alive. Because if you die during a boss fight, you have to be revived physically. Somebody has to come up and revive you because you can't revive yourself. And I'm saying this for people who may not know how dungeons and boss fights and stuff work in Elder Scrolls Online. Anyways, yeah, I get shit for that, which I think is ridiculous, because what's it matter? I'm helping the group. I'm keeping you alive. And then I was in a dungeon with some people before, and I was doing the bow as usual. That's my primary weapon. And my secondary at the time was a shield and sword. And a guy was giving me shit for it. He's, oh, a DPS using a shield and sword? Oh, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Just freaking out because I'm using a shield and sword. And again, what's that matter? My entire role is to do damage. The DPS is so irrelevant. That's why you can have 2 DPS in a dungeon. There's a reason why there's only 1 tank, 1 healer. They are the important ones. The DPS is more or less filler. Like, it really does not matter what I'm doing as long as I'm putting out damage of some sort. And it's not like the reason why he had a problem with it, like the shield and sword, the one hand and sword, it's not necessarily one hand and shield. It's not necessarily a sword. You have other one hand weapons. But it's because they have a lot of taunting stuff, and that's more of a tank role. And because of the shield, you have more armor, so that's more of a tank thing. But what's it matter? I was doing it because it was damage and more. I still did the one hand damage, and I had the shield for the extra armor, so that my character doesn't die. Like, how does he know? He has no idea how I'm building my character. It's just ridiculous. And then I've also been in a group before where it's like all 561s. Like the other 3 dudes are level 561, which is the max level. And at the time, I don't even know what level I was. But, they were freaking out. Oh, we can't do this because we got this guy on our team. I was probably like level 40 or 50. It's going to be, the final boss is going to be hard. Or like we get done with the dungeon, they kick me right away because they don't want me in the next dungeon. Dude, when we go through these dungeons with 3 level 561s and then whatever level I am, they walk, you can see on this gameplay right here, this is short. This dungeon is about 8 minutes long. And that's because 2 of the dudes on our team are level 500 something. We walk through this dungeon with ease. Most dungeons take about an hour. We walk through this dungeon with ease with just 2 level 500 somethings. So like when there's 3 of them, like it doesn't matter if I just stand at the fucking spawn point and they go through the dungeon themselves and get it all done. They don't need me. They're like max level. You don't even, for one, if you're max level, I don't even know why you're in this dungeon anyway. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of rant about the player base is kind of toxic for this game. It is with any kind of multiplayer game. But it's like, if I'm a DPS, if you play as a DPS, just, your role is to do damage. I don't get why they seem to have a problem with the way I play the game. I'm going to play it the way I fucking play it anyway. I pay from Xbox Live. I pay for this fucking game. Got this console. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. Later, guys.